Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at City Hall on June 24th, 2019 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Wall and second by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have no delegations this evening and we have no hearings. So we're going to move right into committee. First up is Finance Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you. The item here we're discussing tonight, close to that maybe, is the second and third reading. Now my computer is acting up. Here we go. So we already gave this first reading, but it's the tax exemption bylaw, and just a little bit of background there. It's not uncommon for us to do this. In fact, we did have a bylaw that was approved back in 2004 and 2006, basically having certain properties exempt from taxation, certain matters of taxation. So I brought up last time that we do have on the island, the Portage Industrial Exhibition Association owns 3 property rolls that are identified there, which are occupied by Stride Place, 25-200, which is the property of Myers Norris Penny and the Fair Board office, so not Myers Norris Penny, but that exhibition building, the Fair Board office, as well as green space and associated campground, that's just south of the golf course. So there's been some discussions that took place over late 2018 and an agreement in place in terms of some changes to that. So it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the tax exemptions bylaw by giving 19-8698 second reading.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Draycott. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And finally, that bylaw 19-8698 be read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Draycott. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And that does conclude my report.
Thank you, Councillor Buds. City Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Myers, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've got 2 reports to file tonight. Of course, the one is we did review in committee for the last council meeting. So, of course, the second quarter report for PRED is before you. I don't know if there's any further questions as it came from committee meeting and last council meeting. But that's there for your perusal. Seeing that, I'll move on to the April-May 2019 building reports as well. We discussed those at committee last council meeting. Again, I just want to say for the record, we are already over at the end of May, combined for the region between both the city and the RM, exceeded last year's total increments. So again, it's something that gets me really excited. And, I know I said enough about that, but it really is good to see. So any questions on those? And that, Your Worship, is my report.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Community Services Committee, Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Worship. Nothing for Community Services Committee this evening.
Thank you. And Waterworks Committee, and welcome back, Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing this evening.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Meyer for Councillor Espy.
The Transportation Committee has nothing to report tonight, Your Worship.
And the Public Safety Committee, Councillor Knox, please.
Nothing from the Public Safety Committee tonight, Your Worship.
Thank you. We've got some deferred business. This is for second, third reading. This is bylaw number 198694. This is the local vehicles for hire, and this is the Finance Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you. If you open the report up, it does say new business, but it certainly is not new business for this council. This bylaw was given first reading some time ago, and then when it came to talk to our second and third reading, there was consensus at council at that point in time that the administration go back and have another discussion with people affected by the bylaw. So that has since occurred, and there was some good discussion held. I might add that the administration has been working on amendments to this bylaw and the bylaw itself, I should say, for well over a year. There has been multiple consultations taking place. We've had presentations from taxi owners, etc. here. So it is after all of that consultation and hard work by our administration that I'm prepared now to move forward with the recommendation for second and third reading with the bylaw as drafted and as approved on first reading. And so, I'm not going to go through it again because again we've looked at this with some changes And I'd just like to thank the administration for all the work that they did on this. So it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that bylaw number 19-8694 to revise the previous local vehicle for hire bylaw of the city of Portage la Prairie be given second reading.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And finally, bylaw 19-8694 be given third and final reading, finally passed, signed, and sealed.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Meyer. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. The next item is new business, and this is Finance Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you. The item we'll be discussing tonight is one involving Canadians and the taxes paid. So just the issue here is to approve property and school tax refunds for Canadian resulting from assessed value changes ordered by the provincial municipal board. And so our alternatives are obviously to delay payment or just to comply with full refund. So it's not uncommon. Canadians has been before council to appeal their taxes in the past, and that has occurred for many years, from 2010 through 2018. And on November 6, 2018, orders were issued by the municipal board providing for a reduction in the property's assessed value. So again, we collect taxes on the value of assessment, and people can appeal their assessment, and Canadians has done just that over the last number of years. And as a result, the municipal board did rule in favor of Canadians' reduced assessment. So the order that we received requires the city to pay the Canadians a refund of excess property and school taxes paid as a result of the reduced assessed value. The problem is, in this situation, it's not as if we can go back to the school board to get the taxes refunded from them as well. So the assessment of property value are completed by the assessment branch. That is not the city. That is a provincial responsibility of the assessment branch. So the refund must include an interest penalty as well on top of this at 4.75% calculated for the days lapsed since each tax payment between 2010 and 18. And the municipal board has been considerably delayed in issuing orders for property assessment appeals. So you can see for the number of years that have been in front of the municipal board, this is how long it's taken them to make a decision, which in our opinion, at least from my chair, is extremely long, and they need to do a much better job in coming to those decisions quicker than we are here today. So I mentioned already, the local school division is not subject to a clawback of overpayments received. So that's not a situation where, again, we can go back to the school board. So the payments are as follows. For overpayment of city property taxes, $106,000, $106,178. For overpayment of school division taxes, $117,972. And there's that interest I was speaking of, for a total of $274,746. And I think it's important to know that we talk a lot about the effect on assessment and the effect on people. And if you were to reverse this calculation, the provision for payment was included in the city's 2019 budget, so we knew this might be coming. And at a cost, as an example, would be approximately $56. Each taxpayer owning a home of around $250,000. So it's common for me to say this is your increase in taxes if you own a home assessed at $250. It's in reverse. So it's just like $56 per assessed property in that area. And so we don't really have a choice here at council in terms of what we do here. The city must comply with the municipal board orders. The only, I said the alternative is delay, but that honestly is not an option. So it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie approve the tax refund payment totaling $274,746 to Canadian for July 15th, 2019.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Wall. Questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Knox?
If your worship, if I could ask our city manager just to speak a little bit to the interest that we're paying on there and some of the changes that have been made since we were given this assessment, so.
Certainly.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Knox. The new system in which they settled 8 years is called the Simplified Taxation Application Process. New applications, as of after that has been put into place, are not responsible for the interest cost, which is it's calculated at 4.75%. However, applications that were settled before that date are subject to that 4.75% interest penalty. We did make a request that that be waived in this case, since we did not control how long it took the municipal board to approve or see these applications. However, that was not an item included in the bill, which will be carried later when session resumes. So we are responsible for those interest payments. That's again 4.75% over the entire 8-year period, resulting in roughly that $50,000 penalty.
And just on that, from this Canada Inn settlement, we weren't the only municipality affected too. City of Brandon with their Canada Inns, as far as we know, they mentioned?
Yeah, there were other Canada properties through the appeal process. I couldn't speak to the specific settlements ordered by the municipal board, but we were not the only municipality under this type of situation.
So although I agree that we're kind of handheld here and need to pay this, I just want to make note that the interest rate, the way things have changed, I'm not happy about that.
Duly noted, Councillor Knox. Thank you. Councillor Wall.
Yes, I'd just like to say that I hope appropriate action has been taken by the municipal board to make sure things of this nature don't drag on for 8 years and accumulate to such large numbers before they're dealt with. And perhaps we wouldn't have to do this again.
I think that message has been sent loud and clear to the municipal board regarding this particular example, and we're looking for some changes in the future. Other questions or comments? We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. The next item of new business is Waterworks Committee. Councillor Wall, please. Oops.
Seem to have lost it. Maybe I reopened it on the wrong page. Yes, I did. Open on the wrong page. Sorry for the delay.
Happens to me all the time. Councillor Wall.
This has to do with the 2020 water and sewer rates bylaw number 19-8699. The issue is to provide a bylaw in support of the city's application to the Public Utilities Board for 2020 water and sewer rates. We can either approve the bylaw for the 2020 rates or deny the new bylaw. The city is applying for a 2020 water and sewer rate increase under the PUB simplified rate application process. To qualify to use the simplified process, the following conditions must be met by the municipality. Completion and filing of audited financial statements must be current and prepared in compliance with Municipal Act Section 190. The utility division of the municipality must not be experiencing an operating deficit, which is the lower of $10,000 or 5% of operating expenses. The utility division must not be experiencing an unexplained annual operating surplus more than 20% of operating expenses. The municipality must accept the following in using the new simplified process. A review of its utility operations is completed, and the requested changes to water and sewer rates must be adequate to meet operating costs at the year changes are requested for. The maximum overall rate and fee increase allowed is 3%, and rate changes can be requested for 1 year only. The city does meet all qualifications for our current 2020 purposes, has deemed the maximum rate is acceptable. The rate increase is acceptable. Rate increase for all levels will be a maximum of 3%. Further, administration has begun a process to amend industrial water and sewer agreements to recognize implementation of Phase 1 of the wastewater plant sewage pretreatment, changes for the expansion of Simplot, and the addition of Roquette. This is a separate Public Utility Board's process. The simplified PUB application process has several filing requirements. A copy of a new utility rates bylaw after first reading only, detailing rates, billing information, and rescinding the past bylaw is required. Upon submission of the simplified utility rate application to the PUB, the notice of application is drafted by the board as approved by city administration and published in conjunction with the board's rules of practice and procedure. Once the notice period has closed, the board will review the evidence and determine if the information is sufficient to make a decision whether to proceed by way of paper-based review or calling a public hearing. The recommendation is, and I so move, that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the city's application to the Public Utilities Board for 2020 water and sewer rates by giving bylaw number 19-8699 first reading.
Moved by Councillor Wall and seconded by Councillor Knox. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. The next item of new business is CHB Developments Incorporated subdivisions, and this is Economic Development Committee. Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Due to possible conflict, I'm going to ask Mr. Budd, or Councillor Budds, to read my report, and I'm going to move it myself.
Okay.
Okay, so the issue here tonight is to consider an application of subdivision, several parcels there, into 13 bare land condo phasing units. So the applicant proposes to subdivide again 13 bare land condo phasing units from the present holding of 3.65 acres. There is a sketch in everyone's report, a couple of different views on what that may look like. And this is all being done for the construction of future fourplexes. And there are currently 3 fourplexes on the parcel, for those of you that are familiar with it. The development has been underway for some time, so it is fully serviced with sewer and water, and the electrical services are provided by Manitoba Hydro for all of the properties, all 16. And we know that access is gained from Municipal Road, and the applicant proposes a new shared driveway onto the land from the Municipal Road. And we did talk about similar situations in the past with this property. The proposed lot was rezoned from M1 light industrial to R3 in 2014. So the variances will be necessary to vary the minimum site area and side width requirements for each of those proposed phasing units, which will come forward in the future. So as per normal, there's some circulation of this information with other departments, and we can see some of the comments here. Sustainable development had no concerns. The Portage la Prairie Planning District recommends approval. Land titles, just noting that a multi-unit phased bare land condo is required. And Canada Post says the mailboxes that are currently there will work. So, Community and Regional Planning recommends approval of subdivision subject to the applicant obtaining the above mentioned variances, which obviously would be a part of our process as well. So does the recommendation of the committee, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the subdivision of parcels A, B, C, D, E, and F, Plan 57474, River Lot 67 and 68, Parish of Portage la Prairie, into 13 bare land condominium phasing units, subject to the applicant obtaining required variances.
Moved by Councillor Budds and seconded by Councillor Draycott. Councillor Knox. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Next item, new business, is the award of the tender for the 2019 water main renewal, and this is Waterworks Committee. Councillor Wall, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. You awarded the tender for the construction of the 2019 water main renewal contract is the issue. We have bids from 2 local companies, Toll Construction and E.F. Moon Limited. The tender was advertised in the Daily Graphic on the city's webpage, on MERCS with the Construction Association of Rural Manitoba and with the Winnipeg Construction Association. Local contractors were contacted. 2 tenders were received for opening on Tuesday, June 25th, 2019. Sustainability factors and pricing were evaluated and are listed above. The pre-tender estimate for this work was $632,730, and the low bid, net of GST, is $590,412. The contract consists of the following work: 160 meters of 150 millimeter PVC water main on Lorne Avenue East, 213 meters of 150 millimeter PVC water main on 6th Street Northwest, 235 meters of 150 millimeter PVC water main on Maplewood Crescent, water services, fire hydrant infill, and restoration. This project will be funded from the 2019 wastewater sewer renewal budget of $280,000, and 2019 water main renewal budget of $345,000, and the fire hydrant infill program of $20,000, for a total budget of $645,000. The contractors indicated the work will begin in July, having water main work completed by October 31st, 2019, with final asphalt repair to be done in 2020. The recommendation is, and I so move, that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award the 2019 water main renewal contract as specified under Tender 19 OPS 016 to Toll Construction Limited for the tendered price of $619,932.60, including taxes.
Moved by Councillor Wall and seconded by Councillor Draycott. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Draycott?
Thank you, Your Worship. Perhaps just an out-of-the-box question. Given that the report does state that the final asphalt repair would be done in 2020, is it the expectation that we would see something similar to this year on our previous repairs, that a road would be replaced in full after this asphalt repair would be done?
Well, that's a question I'm going to direct to Mr. Braden.
You want me to use the mic, or? I can go up here. I was going to actually take the jump over the council table.
I apologize.
Is there a door? Yeah. Let me just go, Mike. My information, or Mr. Brady. Please do not lock me in here. It could be an interesting evening back. Thank you, Mr. Brady.
Yeah, because the construction is probably not going to be complete till October, restoration with hot mix asphalt wouldn't really be recommended at that time of year. So it'll likely, most likely we'll put asphalt millings in for the winter, and the restoration work will be done in 2020. I don't believe any of these roads are necessarily on the plan for resurfacing next year. I don't recall offhand. We do an evaluation every fall. I know at least a couple of these roads are high on the list, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to resurface these roads next year.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Any other questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. The next item is old business, third reading of PC 9-19, this is rezoning bylaw number 19-8690, and this is city planning and economic development. Councilor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Of course, Council before you, the Douglas tonight is the third reading of PC 919, rezoning bylaw number 198690. As you see in the report to Council, the first reading was done back on March the 25th. The second reading was done on May the 27th. At that point in time, there were some objections that were heard and read at that hearing. It was thought originally that because of the objections that a second hearing would be needed to be held at the planning district. However, recent changes to the Provincial Planning Act, Section 73.1 states that a minimum of 25 people or 50% of the total number of property owners that are located within a 100-meter radius have to object to the rezoning before it would proceed to a second hearing. The number of people required before a second hearing was to be held was not met, so a third reading can tonight be given to the bylaw. The bylaw is in front of you as well as the sketch. So once again, just as a reminder, the background is for the property in question. Part of parcels A, B, and C, Plan 42-638, which comprise of lots 1 to 7 and 41 to 47, Block 6, Plan 407, and lots 45 to 51, Block 5, Plan 407. And the parish of Portage la Prairie is presently zoned OR, or Open Space Recreation. The applicant, owner William and Connie Kent, wish to rezone the property to R160 residential single family. You will see some of the Portage la Prairie development plans there on the bottom that of course have to be adhered to. Since then, we already know that the application has been circulated to various city departments with no concerns being expressed, and the application has been advertised in the Daily Graphic for 2 consecutive weeks prior to the bylaw being read. Documents were circulated to provincial departments and agencies with no objections, and provincial planning recommends approval to this facility bylaw. So with that said, and it's the recommendation of this committee, and I so move, that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the application to rezone the land known as northwest corner of Alexander Avenue and Caledonia Street, and legally described as parts of parcels A, B, and C, Plan 42-638, lots 1 to 7 and 41 to 47, Lot 6, Plan 407, and lots 45 to 51, Block 5, Plan 407, in the parish of Portage la Prairie from OR, or Open Space Recreation Zone, to R160, which is Residential Single Family Zone, and that the bylaw 19-8690 be read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed.
Moved by Councilor Meyer and seconded by Councilor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And that's the end of my report, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councilor Meyer. The council is adjourned at 6:29 p.m. and we're going to move right into the committee. Committee to order at 6:29 p.m. First up is Finance Legislative Property Committee. Councilor Buds, please.
Thank you. Just one item for committee's consideration this evening, and that is entering into an easement agreement with Simplot Canada, and we know what's going on at Simplot, and so they're doing their planning for having to deal with their effluent and moving it into the Assiniboine River. Before I read that, though, I just wanted to point clarity from, I don't necessarily need to discuss it right now, is it says Simplot Canada has requested access to and across city property as described in this plan, which is located, so this plan is located southwest of the city between Trans-Canada Highway and the Assiniboine River in the RM of Portage. And so, am I just reading that wrong? Am I misinterpreting something? Does anyone else see that? It sounds like it's ours, so I think it's located in the RM.
I'll speak to that, and maybe if I'm mistaken, I'll ask Kelly to correct me, but I believe this is actually property that is owned, but it's in the RM of Portage. And so we own that lot that has access to the river, but it is located in the RM of Portage.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Thank you. So anyway, for discussion as us entering into this agreement, I'll be recommending approval for this. Obviously, it's something that's required, and the plan is detailed and sketched out. So is there any questions other than my observation there? Question? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it forth at next council meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Butts.
That concludes my committee report.
City Planning and Development, Councilor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Community Services Committee, Councilor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would ask Mr. Kostachuk, who is joining us this evening as representation for PCRC, if he would be able to provide us his second quarterly report.
Thank you, Councillor Draycott. I just want to highlight a few of the key points in the quarterly report. The first would be that $21,750 in grants were awarded toward food security, community pride, employment, and palliative care. I also want to mention that the newcomer readiness report is completed, and it will be presented to Council in the next quarter. The Skills Up program graduated 12 women to serve as childcare workers, and it's notable that 12 women started the program and 12 graduated, and that's actually a remarkable achievement for programs of this nature. The beautification events and Touch a Truck had close to 1,000 participants, and they collected at the beautification days over 100 bags of garbage. The Wellness Expo was also well attended. It promoted 18 local businesses and organizations, and I think we fed around 300 people that day. The Hub Table has had 126 referrals in 13 months. This risk detection strategy is generating some interest, and that's shown by the fact that the RCMP provided a significant grant for further training. The Bear Clan presentation at the Herman Pryor saw over 230 participants, and plans are moving forward quickly on bringing this initiative to our city. It's also important to note that many of these initiatives are ably supported by Cornell Pache, including the June 21st Indigenous Day. I would like to close by saying that PCRC thanks His Worship and councillors for their continued support for our PCRC initiatives. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kostachuk.
Thank you, Mr. Kostachuk. Just a statement, we would like to thank PCRC for their continued support for our community members in Portage la Prairie. You definitely provide a lot of support within the community and fills the needs, so always a very busy report. We appreciate your time this evening. Thank you. And that concludes my community services report.
Thank you, Councilor Draycott. Waterworks Committee, Councilor Wall, please.
Yes, Your Worship, this is for information only. It concerns lead in drinking water, and we're bringing it forward because there have been some changes by Health Canada in the regulatory guideline for lead in potable water. The new Canadian Drinking Water Guideline maximum acceptable concentration for total lead was lowered from 0.010 milligrams per liter set in 1992 to 0.005 milligrams per liter. This is based on a sample of water taken at a consumer's tap. Lead is a soft, bluish-gray heavy metal and can be harmful to human health, even in very small amounts. Lead can pose significant public health risk if ingested as a dust or mold contained or dissolved in drinking water. All ages can be affected. However, lead is of greatest concern for pregnant women and young children because infants and children are more susceptible to its harmful effects on neurodevelopment, behavior, and intelligence. In adults, lead exposure can also increase blood pressure or cause kidney problems. Lead is usually found in drinking water after leaching from distribution and plumbing system components. It was historically used in service lines, for pipes connecting a home or business from a water main, and in plumbing fittings and pipe and solder. Up until 1975, lead was the acceptable material in pipes based on the National Plumbing Code of Canada, so it's more likely to be found in older homes and in neighborhoods. Since lead was regularly used in the distribution system and plumbing fixtures for many years, some of these lead components are still in place today. The City of Portage la Prairie treatment plant receives the raw water supply from the Assiniboine River, which contains very low lead levels, 0.000579 milligrams per liter. And after the water passes through the water treatment process, the treated water leaving the plant has extremely low concentrations of lead at 0.000050 milligrams per liter, well below the Canadian Drinking Water Quality Guideline of 0.005 milligrams per liter. Water in the main lines also has extremely low levels of lead. The City of Portage la Prairie monitors the stability of the treated water and makes treatment adjustments to minimize its corrosiveness or tendency to dissolve lead into the treated water. Corrosion control is one of the treatment processes which is used to help control lead from leaching into the water supply. Monitoring and adjusting the pH of the water entering the distribution system with sodium hydroxide aids in controlling the corrosivity potential in the distribution system. Tests are done at the water treatment plant daily, and water samples are taken from various locations in the distribution system on a weekly basis and analyzed for corrosion potential. Since 2003, orthophosphate, phosphoric acid, is also added to inhibit corrosion of the mainline pipes and lead service lines in the distribution system. When phosphoric acid is added to the water, the chemical will sequester metals and leave a coating on the inside of the pipes. This reduces the potential for leaching of metal compounds into the treated water supply. Quarterly water samples are taken from 7 different locations in the city distribution system and tested for metals content. Some of the locations have a lead water service line or have been replaced with new copper line. It's recommended before drinking the water to let the tap run for 2 to 3 minutes to clear water from the household plumbing and service line. The longer the water stands in a plumbing system, the greater the potential is for lead to dissolve into the water. Since the implementation of the phosphoric acid feed and metal sampling program in 2003, the lead level is decreased in homes with lead service lines and plumbing fixtures. A home with a lead service line after several hours of no water use typically exhibits a peak lead concentration of 0.005 milligrams per liter to 0.02 milligrams per liter. However, after 5 minutes of flushing, lead concentrations are typically less than 0.001 milligram per liter, which is 5 times lower than the Canadian Drinking Water Quality Guideline of 0.005 milligrams per liter. Health Canada recommends that sampling locations for lead should include schools and daycare facilities. These sampling locations, although there are none with known lead water service lines, will be added to the quarterly metal sampling program. Our sampling program will include these locations for daycare, Portage Daycare at 36 2nd Street Southwest, and Ecole Arthurian School located at 201 River Road. One option to reduce the potential for lead dissolution into the water supply is to replace lead water service lines, lead-based solder fittings, and brass faucets and fittings which contain lead. The City of Portage la Prairie has a lead service line replacement subsidy program available for property owners to encourage and assist residents with the replacement of their lead service line. Currently, there are approximately 340 homes with verified lead water service lines. It's expected there could be a few to several hundred more homes with lead water service lines. These homes are mainly in the central and eastern areas of the city. When the water mains are replaced, residents in the area with a known lead service line area are notified by letter, providing information about the lead service line replacement subsidy program. The city replaces the portion of the lead service line from the water main to the property line and encourages the property owner to replace their portion of the service line at that time. The city also carries a small budget to replace lead service lines if any homeowner makes a request at any time. For over 2 decades, since lead level concentrations in drinking water and associated health risk concerns were raised by Health Canada, the City of Portage la Prairie has taken an active approach to minimizing lead in drinking water, as well as posting information on the city's website regarding lead in drinking water, lead service line replacement subsidy program, and links to other websites which have information regarding lead levels and health risks. It's the city's intent to continue with the quarterly monitoring program for metals in drinking water and to supply information to homeowners with lead service lines regarding associated health issues related to having lead service. If you require more information on lead in drinking water, there's a list of links to different websites where you can get that additional information. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Transportation Committee, Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. And the Public Safety Committee, Councillor Knox, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing from public safety tonight.
Thank you. So committee is adjourned at 6:41 p.m.